This is Larry, and I bought a car in Japan, another one. I sold my old Cappuccino, and I was planning on getting a van, but they sold out. And so another Cappuccino popped up, and I was feeling sad, so I bought it. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I bought it, and then how I imported it in, and all the steps you'll need to buy a car online from Japan, and get it imported here. So first of all, um, you have to buy the car. So you have to find it, and you have to find it in Japan. And there's a few ways to do that. The Japanese auctions are probably the best way to do it, but you have to sign up, and you really need to speak some Japanese, and have some kind of finances arranged in Japan to buy a car in Japan, and then a way to ship it. There's easier ways to do it, and there are these aggregator sites, are kind of like cars.com. One of them, the one I used, was BeForward. There's a bunch of others. Another one is called Car from Japan. They all have different prices. I'll have the links down to these below, but you can find a whole bunch of these and decide which one's the best for you. I use BeForward, and basically what they do is they specialize in shipping cars out of Japan. They sell them and then they ship them out. And they'll either have dealers all around their inventory, which you can buy, as well as some of their own inventory. The other way to do it, if you really want to do the auctions, there's a bunch of other sites similar to the Import Guys. Basically, the Import Guys, they keep some stock in Japan and the U.S., but they also allow you to buy on the Japanese auction. You'll send the money to them. You'll contact them, tell them what cars you're interested in. They'll tell you how much money they think it'll cost. You'll send them the money, and then they'll buy the car, or you have to send some of the money and buy it. I like the Import Guys. The prices are great, and they're really solid. I don't know how they make money, because when you buy a car in the auction, you have to pay several $100s, maybe $400 in fees alone. Then you have to get it from the auction site to the port, and that's going to cost you, 100 to 500, depending on where the car is, to the port you want to ship it from. Plus, then you have to ship it. And so some people, when they do a lot of cars, they can consolidate those costs, and that's probably how they do it. They're located in Washington, by the way, so you can call them up and talk to them. Anyway, so if you ever want to choose from Japanese auction, you can sign up on their website. You can see, then you can kind of choose the cars you want, and then choose the ones you want to bid on. And they have them from all locations of Japan. That's probably the cheapest way to go, and I would definitely contact these guys if that's the way you want to go. If you want to do it yourself, you can use companies like BeForward, and that's what I used. But before you get started, there's a great guide. It's called Witty Melon, and he imported a 25-year-old truck from K-Truck, which is a small class of vehicle in Japan. It means light truck in Japanese. And he imported it into Washington. And he tells you exactly how he did it. He even cleared it himself. So he has all the forms you'll need. One thing you'll know, and it's really good read before you get started, I would recommend you read this. Start here first, and I'll have a link to that in the description. The import process is slightly different for cars that are $2,500 or less, and ones that are more than $2,500. So that's really important. He imported a car that was less than $2,500. Also, the duty is different for trucks and cars, and how they classify them. If you bring in a truck or a K-van or a van that has folding seats and is mainly used for transporting stuff, the duty is 25%. If you bring in a car, passenger vehicle, it's 2.5%. So a huge difference on that, 10 times or whatever it is. So keep that in mind when choosing your car, and the fees you're going to have to pay on the duty when it enters the U.S. So the site that I use is BeForward. They handle everything to get the car to the port. You're going to have to handle it from there. In other words, you're going to have to get a clearing agent, or you can do it yourself, but it's pretty hard the first time, especially. Um, but you're going to get, so they'll get it to the port. They're going to get the export certificate, which you're going to need in order to register the car in the U.S., and all of the other documentation. The car needs to get steam cleaned before it clears the U.S. So the these guys will handle that. They'll find basically they find the car, then they find the shipping agent that'll get the that'll clean the car and ship it. For my car, they used a company called, let me see if I can find them. It was called like Phoenix. Anyway, this company Phoenix, they only speak Japanese, but they clean the car and then they set up the shipping with a Nissan cargo carrier. And to use the site, I'll go over how you use it and how I found my car. So basically, if you want to import a car into the U.S., it's got to be 25 years or older. And if you that means that any car that's was made right now, it's January 2020. So any car made from January 1995. If it's been made in February or March, you technically can't import it into the U.S. yet. Um, but since it takes 6 weeks or 8 weeks sometimes to get the car here, that really means that you can look at cars that were made in February or March of 1995. And then they'll actually work with you if you contact them and you buy a car that was made in June. They'll hold the car for a small fee, and then they'll charge you $100 or $50 a month to store the car for several months until it can be shipped. So if you buy, so since it takes 6 weeks on average to get the car over, I can actually start looking at cars that were made in February. And probably by the time it arrives, it'll be exactly 25 years old, and then it can come in. So if I buy a car now, but it was made in February, but if it arrives in the U.S. and it shows that it was made February 1995, they'll clear it through. I hope that's clear. Basically, how you search it is you just put in the dates that you're looking for. Here's what I did here. I was looking for K cars, but if you're interested in K cars, I usually look for K cars between 89 and 95. You can put the months in too. I'm not going to bother with that. Just because from 85, they changed the CC displacement on K cars from 550 cc to 650 cc, as well as the horsepower amount, which I can't remember. I think it was 55 horsepower, and now it's 64 horsepower, something like that, or 54 to 64. So you get a bit more horsepower and a bit more, displacement on the engines on cars after 1990 or 1989. Anyway, you can get an idea here. Here's some of the cars that are available. You see a lot of trucks and K vans here. And for example, if I was interested in this one, it's a Mitsubishi minicab truck. I have to choose which port I want it shipped to, and you can see I've already chose Tacoma. I'm located in Colorado, so any port, if it goes into LA port, Tacoma, Texas, there's about 5 or 6 ports you can choose. You can see there's Baltimore, Long Beach, Jacksonville, Freeport, Texas, New York, Newport News, Savannah. There's Guam, Maui, Honolulu, Galveston. They're all about the same price, especially since 2006. If you don't know, they expanded the Panama Canal to take larger boats, so now it's the same price to ship to California as is to ship to the East Coast. It's really opened it up. Anyway, so I chose Tacoma because it's all the same distance, and I shipped there before, so I know it. You can see that this car, one thing to keep in mind is if you're using these aggregate companies, this one's based in Tokyo. So Yokohama is the closest port, and that's where they store the cars that they buy. And so shipping prices for cars located in Yokohama are going to be cheaper than a car in Osaka. You can see this car is 500, this one's 743. But since it's located in Osaka, the price is substantially more to ship it to Tacoma Port. This price here, the red price, includes the the export certificate and the invoice and all the other documents you'll need, plus shipping to Tacoma Port. Um, Anyway, so lots of things to keep in mind. Also, the bigger the car, the more it costs to ship because it takes up more space, obviously. And you can get an idea. So sometimes if you're looking for the cheapest deal, it's better to just look on total price because it can be quite different. The price can be higher, but then the shipping will be lower depending on where the car is located. So you get an idea here. What's available? Here, we'll take a look at a few more of these just to give you an idea. Anyway, you can pop on it. I'll have the link on the website description for B Forward, or you can just look it up. Here's a Mitsubishi. I think this one was made in June. It doesn't say. Sometimes you have to look it up, which they'll do for you. And you can see this one's in Kobe, so they're going to charge $1,000 to ship it as opposed to like 6 or 7 or 8, which they usually charge. Okay, now the car I bought was a Suzuki Cappuccino, and suppose you found a car you want to buy, you're going to hit, instead of find similar, you're going to say, it says inquire. So you're going to send an inquiry to them. They're going to confirm they still have it or that they can get it, because some of the cars they don't own. They're at dealers, and so you're gonna send them an inquiry, and then they're going to send you a price total with the shipping to whatever port you chose. After of course, you've created an account with them. And then once you say you want to do that, they're going to send you a pro forma invoice. And then with a wire instructions. You can't pay by credit card. You got to wire the money from your bank, which is very standard in Japan. But anyway, I know that, car from Japan and B Forward, they've been around for a long time. And so I had no issue I wasn't worried about wiring the money. But before you buy the car, make sure you've checked it out. The car I chose is pretty beat up. It's a rough car, but I know Cappuccino, so I kind of know what to look for. So, but after checking all the photos and zooming in as much as you can see this was a repaint. You got to check the auction sheet. So here's the auction sheet for it. So they have two versions. They have the auction sheet, which is in Japanese, which means they bought it from Japanese auction. If you check some of the stock they have, some of them don't have auction sheets or check sheets. That means it's a dealer car and not an auction car. So if you check the auction sheet, it's all in Japanese. And if you use why I like the import guys, they have a pretty good guide on how to read these sheets, or the import guys. You can see that there are these U1, A1, U3. There's a few things here that if you read Japanese, you can kind of understand. There's an oil leak. There's lots of things like that. A slight oil leak on here. But anyway, and then R means repaired, and that could mean anything. In Japan, it's not that good. It's also D rating, so it's pretty low. The paint's pretty bad. It's a manual transmission, has 119,000 kilometers on it. But the main thing you don't want to see is an S or a U. Sorry, no, an S or a C. S stands for Sabi, which means rust. And they'll have a level, 1, level 2, level 3. So S1 is bad, S3 is terrible, don't get it. And same thing with C, which stands for corrosion. You don't want any of those. You don't want to see any of that on these auction sheets. If you do, don't buy the car because that means it's in pretty rough condition, even rougher than the one I bought. Let's see. There's also something else you want to see here is the check sheet. The nice thing about these guys is that they have a check sheet which is mostly in English, not completely. And you can see they have things like timing belt change, coolant level, things like that. So you can use that to get an idea of the condition of the car. Here it says oil leak. NG means no good, so it's small, which is almost certainly in the Suzuki. It's probably the seal, the camshaft, or the main shaft seal, which I was going to change anyway. I always give them I always change the timing belt and the seals on it. So I'm hoping that's what it is. I'm not sure. And it tells you the tire size here, and it says the tires are okay. engine condition, all those things. If it has smoke or idling or any issues, here it says okay. It's has a radio and a CD player, which really doesn't matter because the Japanese radios don't have the frequencies to match the U.S. Radio station, so you're gonna have to swap it out anyway. Windows work okay. Everything's okay here, and then it'll say if they have any comments. It says oil leaking small, which we already saw, and then can't open trunk. It's because something is wrong with the barrel. I contacted before I bought the car. I contacted B Forward um, when they sent me the invoice, and I asked them about that, and they said actually they changed it and fixed it. And this is a good opportunity when when you buy something, they'll give you direct contact with somebody, and you can ask them. You want to buy new tires for it. They can actually do things like that for you before you buy it, and then they'll add that to the invoice, or they'll do it after you buy it. So, but that's something to keep in mind. So, I paid for my car. It arrived, or I paid for my car. I got the invoice. When they got the payment, then they sent me the pro forma invoice, and then they asked me what schedule I wanted. So I chose the soonest schedule could go on to the boat, and there was a boat right there. So my car, I bought it on the 12th, and the car was shipped like I think it was shipped on the like before Christmas. It was shipped quite quickly, and it came here. Maybe it was shipped on the 22nd, and it arrived in the USA on the 3rd of January. So it came way quicker than I expected. I thought it wouldn't come until the end of the month. So now it's in the process of clearing. I actually contacted a clearing agent who's I actually prepared all the paperwork already, but they're doing all the clearing and doing the you have to have like money set aside in case there's an issue, things like that. Um, a bond. Sorry, that's what I meant. That's what I was thinking about. They do all the bond and stuff. And there's a company, if you're going to do it to Tacoma Port, they're local. I was going to recommend them, and I'll put a link to them as well. They're very good as a clearing agent for Tacoma. So for other clearing agents, ask around. You can find them online too. Just ask around, but you're going to look for a customs clearing agent. I used an online custom clearing agent that was recommended by the B Forward guy because he didn't really know anybody in Tacoma because they mostly deal with third world countries, and they actually weren't very good, to be honest. So I wish I'd stuck with the original people I had used. Um, Anyway, I'll stop it here for now. This is an idea of how to buy the car. You can use it, B Forward or Car from Japan or the import guys. I would definitely read this. There's also Yahoo Auction. A lot of people want to. They see cars in Yahoo Auction, and I'll be honest, it's actually a pretty crappy place to buy a car. And then there's tons of complications. You really need to speak Japanese. Um, you have to make payment from a Japanese bank usually. The car is probably not going to be located anywhere near the port, so you're going to spend like $500 or $600 just to transport the car to a port. Then you have to transport it to somebody who can actually deal with the car, get you the export. Who can have the car signed in their name to get the export certificate. It's very complicated, and so that's why you really need to contact an agent first before you go to Yahoo Auctions to try to buy a car because it's really complicated, and also the prices aren't very good. The auctions are way better pricing, so I would really steer clear of Yahoo Auctions unless you find a really good deal. But I did buy a car on Yahoo Auctions, and I'll go over that in another video.